What happens when a dying billionaire's salvation comes from the one person everyone ignored? Korean mogul Park Jinwoo had 72 hours left to live. 27 of the world's most elite physicians had declared him a medical impossibility. His organs were systematically shutting down. His family had begun funeral preparations. And then, at 2:47 a.m. on a rain-soaked Thursday, a cleaning lady with an expired visa and a chemistry degree she'd never finished walked into his room and noticed something that would rewrite everything. This is the story of how the invisible became unforgettable. But before we unravel this incredible tale, smash that subscribe button because you won't believe where this journey takes us. The Park estate in Seoul's Gangnam district wasn't just wealthy. It was a fortress of old money, where marble corridors whispered secrets and crystal chandeliers cost more than most people's homes. For 6 weeks, it had transformed into a medical war room. Specialists arrived in waves, neurologists from Johns Hopkins who'd treated presidents, toxicologists from Switzerland who'd consulted on international poisoning cases, immunologists from Tokyo who'd published groundbreaking research. They brought cutting-edge equipment, experimental treatments, and reputations that preceded them like thunder. And Park Jinwoo, 32 years old, Korea's youngest self-made billionaire who'd built a pharmaceutical empire from a single patent, continued his inexorable march toward death. Zara Mitchell had been cleaning the night shift at the Park estate for exactly 97 days when fate intervened. She hadn't planned to be in Seoul. 6 years ago, she'd been a rising star at Howard University, a pre-med student with a full scholarship and a photographic memory for molecular structures. Then her mother's cancer diagnosis arrived like a wrecking ball. Medical bills devoured their savings. Zara dropped out to work 3 jobs. Her mother died anyway, and Zara, drowning in grief and debt, took a teaching position in Seoul to escape the wreckage of her American life. That teaching position led to a charming boyfriend who stole her savings, a violated visa that left her undocumented, and a desperate scramble for survival that landed her here, pushing a cleaning cart through halls where a single vase cost more than she'd earn in 5 years. The day staff gossiped constantly how the young master had collapsed during a merger presentation, blood streaming from his nose, how he'd lost 43 pounds in 6 weeks, how his hands shook so violently he'd stopped signing documents, stopped attending meetings, stopped being the ruthless genius who'd revolutionized Korea's pharmaceutical industry, how the tremors had progressed to full-body seizures, how he'd started forgetting people's names, forgetting entire conversations, forgetting who he was. The doctors kept arriving. Keep testing. I kept finding absolutely nothing. Psychosomatic, declared the psychiatrist after the 20th normal brain scan. Possibly a prion disease, suggested the neurologist, though every test contradicted it. We're running out of options, admitted the head of Seoul National University Hospital during a hushed consultation that Zara overheard while dusting the library. I've never seen anything like this. It's as if his body is simply giving up. Lady Park, Jinwoo's mother, had stopped sleeping. Zara would see her at 4 a.m., sitting motionless in the garden, staring at nothing. The woman who'd once hosted charity galas for thousands now looked like a ghost herself, hollow-eyed, silent, waiting for her only son to die. Zara had glimpsed Jinwoo 3 times. The first time he'd been unconscious on a gurney, surrounded by 6 medical professionals debating in urgent whispers. The second time, she'd been cleaning a hallway when he stumbled past, supported by 2 nurses, his face the colour of old newspapers. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. She saw something there that haunted her for days, not fear, but a desperate fading curiosity, as if he was trying to memorize the world before he left it. The third time changed everything. It was 2:47 a.m. Zara had finished the guest wing and was wheeling her cart past the family quarters, technically off limits, but the head housekeeper had asked her to deep clean the sitting room adjacent to Jinwoo's bedroom because important visitors were coming tomorrow. Specialists from America who'd apparently developed a new diagnostic protocol, That's when she heard it. Not retching this time. Worse. A sound like drowning, like someone trying to breathe through water. Zara's hand was on the door before conscious thought kicked in. She pushed it open. Jinwoo was on the floor beside his bed, convulsing. His body arched violently. Foam bubbled at his lips. His eyes had rolled back, showing only whites. The night nurse assigned to him was slumped in her chair, head tilted at an uncomfortable angle, sleeping so deeply she might as well have been sedated. Zara's pre-med training activated muscle memory. She dropped to her knees, turned him on his side so he wouldn't choke, checked his pulse, racing but present, and grabbed her phone to call emergency services. Then she stopped. Because in the midst of his seizure, as his arm flailed outward, it knocked over the nightstand. A teacup shattered. Liquid spread across the marble floor, and Zara saw something that made her blood freeze. The spilled tea was crystallizing, not drying, crystallizing, forming tiny needle-like structures that caught the lamplight like frost. Tea doesn't do that. The seizure was subsiding. Jinwoo's breathing steadied into ragged gasps. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "Don't move," Zara whispered, her hand on his shoulder. "Just breathe." "I've got you." "Who?" His voice was destroyed, barely functional. "I'm nobody." "Just breathe." She helped him back onto the bed, her mind racing. Those crystals. She'd seen something like that before in her toxicology course. Professor Williams had shown them a case study. A businessman poisoned over months with a substance that crystallized in certain conditions when exposed to air. She glanced at the nurse, still dead asleep. Too deeply asleep for someone who was supposed to be monitoring a critical patient. Something was very, very wrong here. "How long have you been drinking that tea?" Zara asked quietly. Jinwoo's eyes struggled to focus on her. "What?" "The tea." "That specific tea. How long?" "I don't... 4 months. My mother brought it. Family blend from Jeju." "Why does..." He stopped, confusion crossing his face. "Why are you asking about tea?" Zara moved to the spilled liquid, careful not to touch it. She pulled out her phone, snapped several photos of the crystalline formations, then she turned back to him. "Mr. Park, I need you to listen very carefully. I think someone's been poisoning you, and I think I know what they're using." His laugh was bitter, broken. 27 doctors. You think they didn't test for poison? They tested for common poisons, industrial toxins, heavy metals. But there's a whole category of botanical alkaloids that metabolize too slowly for standard panels. They accumulate in soft tissue. By the time symptoms appear, the substance itself is barely detectable in blood or urine. You'd need to test hair follicles, nail beds, or know exactly what you're looking for. Jinwoo stared at her. "Who are you?" Someone who was pre-med before life got in the way. Someone who still remembers her toxicology lectures. She met his eyes. And someone who just watched your tea crystallize in a pattern consistent with aconitine contamination. Aconitine. Monkshood. Wolfsbane. It's been used as a poison for over 1,000 years. Small doses cause tremors, nausea, cardiac arrhythmia, neurological deterioration. Larger doses cause seizures, organ failure, and death. And because it's plant-based and breaks down slowly, it's almost impossible to detect unless you're specifically looking for it. The room fell silent except for Jinwoo's laboured breathing. "My mother brings me that tea every morning," he finally said. "She prepares it herself." "Does she drink from the same batch?" "No. She has a different blend." Their eyes locked. Zara could see his brilliant mind working through the implications, fighting through the neurological fog the poison had created. "I need to test it," she said. "Properly." "Do you have any chemistry equipment here?" "My private study. I used to experiment with pharmaceutical compounds as a hobby. The lab should still be functional." He struggled to sit up. "But if you're right, if someone's been poisoning me for 4 months, then they're very patient and very smart. And they'll notice if you suddenly stop dying." Jinwoo's jaw tightened. Despite his weakened state, she could see the ruthless intelligence that had built an empire. So we don't let them notice. Not yet. For the next 4 hours, while the estate slept and the nurse remained mysteriously unconscious, Zara worked in Jinwoo's private laboratory. She hadn't touched chemistry equipment in 6 years, but her hands remembered. She prepared samples of the tea, ran separation protocols, used reagent tests she'd learned in sophomore year. At 6:43 a.m., just as dawn light began creeping through the windows, she had her confirmation. Aconitine, present in concentrations that would kill a healthy person in weeks. In someone who'd been consuming it daily for 4 months, it was a miracle Jinwoo was still breathing. She found him in his study, laptop open, clearly having spent the sleepless hours researching everything he could find about aconitine poisoning. "You were right," she said simply, placing her analysis in front of him. "Whoever's doing this is sophisticated. The dosage is calculated perfectly, high enough to be lethal over time, low enough to mimic a wasting disease. It's actually brilliant, in a horrifying way." Jinwoo's hands clenched into fists. "Who has access to the tea before it reaches my mother?" They spent the next hour mapping it out. The tea came from the family's private Jeju estate, shipped monthly in sealed containers. Those containers went to the main kitchen where they were stored in a locked cabinet. Each morning, Lady Park's personal attendant retrieved the tea and brought it to her private sitting room. Lady Park then brewed it herself and personally delivered it to her son. "The attendant," Jinwoo said, "or someone with access to the kitchen's storage." "Who benefits if you die?" Zara asked bluntly. His face darkened. "My uncle. My father's younger brother. He's been pushing for control of Park Industries since my father died. Claims I'm too young, too reckless. The board has been resisting, but..." He gestured at his wasted body. "If I die without an heir, he inherits controlling interest. My mother gets a generous pension, but he gets the empire." "And if you're incapacitated?" "Same result. The board meets in 8 days to vote on appointing a new CEO due to my medical inability to lead. If that passes, I lose everything." There it was. Motive, method, opportunity. "We need proof," Zara said. "Real proof. Not just my analysis. We need to catch them in the act." "How?" She thought about it, her mind working through possibilities. "We set a trap. You keep drinking the tea, but it's clean tea that I prepare. You start miraculously improving. Whoever's poisoning you will panic. They'll either increase the dosage or switch methods. Either way, they'll make a mistake. That's dangerous. You're dying anyway. This way we have a chance." Jinwoo studied her for a long moment. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me. You have no stake in this. If you're caught helping me, you'll be deported at minimum." Zara met his gaze. "Because 27 doctors with all their resources and reputations missed this. Because you deserve to know who's killing you. And because..." She paused. "Because I watched my mother die slowly from something we couldn't stop. I'm not watching it happen again when I can actually do something about it." Something shifted in his expression. "What's your name?" "Zara. Zara Mitchell. Thank you, Zara Mitchell, for seeing what no one else could see." The plan went into motion that morning. Zara prepared clean green tea in Jinwoo's laboratory, packaged it identically to the original, and smuggled it into his room. When Lady Park arrived with his morning tea, he drank it in front of her as always, then discreetly disposed of it and consumed Zara's clean version instead. The transformation was remarkable. By day 2, the tremors had noticeably decreased. By day 4, he kept down a full meal. By day 6, he walked unaided from his bedroom to his study, something he hadn't done in 5 weeks. The household was calling it a miracle. Doctors were baffled. Lady Park wept with joy. But someone was watching very carefully. On day 7 at 3:17 a.m., Zara entered the kitchen to prepare that night's clean tea and found Jinwoo's uncle standing at the counter with the original tea container open in front of him. In his hand was a small amber vial. They stared at each other for 3 frozen seconds. "You," she breathed. Park Jinwoo smiled. It was the smile of a shark scenting blood. "The little cleaning lady?" "I've been wondering who was interfering with my nephew's treatment. I'm calling the police." "With what evidence?" "Your word against mine? An undocumented American working illegally?" He stepped closer and Zara saw the vial more clearly. The liquid inside was darker, more viscous than before. "No one will believe you, sweetheart. You'll be deported before you finish dialing. You won't get away with this. I already have. Even if you scream right now, even if you tell everyone, this vial disappears, that t-test's clean, and you look like a delusional foreigner making wild accusations against a respected businessman." His smile widened. "You lose. I win. Jinwoo dies, and the company goes to someone who actually deserves it." Zara's hand slipped into her pocket. "You're right. No one would believe me. That's why I've been recording this entire conversation." She pulled out her phone, screen facing him, red recording indicator glowing. His face went from confident to ashen in a heartbeat. "Say that last part again," Zara said calmly. "About Jinwoo dying and you getting the company." "I want to make sure the audio is crystal clear." Park Jinwoo lunged, but Zara had 3 older brothers and had grown up fighting for survival. She ducked under his grab, drove her knee into his solar plexus, and when he doubled over, smashed his hand against the counter. The vial flew from his grip, shattering across the tile floor in an explosion of amber liquid. "Help!" she screamed. "Someone help! There's an intruder!" The estate erupted. Within 30 seconds, security flooded the kitchen. Within a minute, Lady Park appeared in her robe, followed by Jinwoo himself, still weak, but walking. "What is the meaning of—" Lady Park stopped, seeing her brother-in-law on the floor, Zara standing over him, her phone in her hand, and the shattered vial at their feet. "Play it," Jinwoo said quietly to Zara. So she did. The kitchen fell into absolute silence as Park Jinwoo's voice echoed from the phone speaker. His confession, his motive, his casual certainty that he'd get away with murdering his nephew. Every damning word captured in perfect digital clarity. When it finished, Lady Park's face had transformed into something Zara had never seen. Grief and rage forged into diamond-hard resolve. "Call the police," she said, her voice cutting like ice. "Call our attorneys. Call the media. I want everyone to know what he did, what he tried to do." She looked at her brother-in-law with absolute contempt. "You will spend the rest of your miserable life in prison. I will make certain of it." As security dragged Park Jinwoo away, screaming about betrayal, about family, about how he deserved the company, Jinwoo crossed slowly to where Zara stood, still shaking with adrenaline. "You just saved my life," he said. "Again." "I just recorded a confession." "No." His voice was steady despite his weakness. "You risked everything. Your safety, your freedom, possibly your life. For someone you barely know." He paused. "Why?" Zara looked at him. This brilliant dying man who'd been given a second chance. "Because chemistry isn't just what I studied. It's who I am, and I'm not built to watch people die when I can figure out how to save them." He smiled. "Then maybe you should finish what you started." "What do you mean?" "Your degree, your medical career, everything you gave up." He met her eyes. "I owe you my life, Zara Mitchell. The least I can do is help you reclaim yours." What happened next made international headlines. Park Jinwoo's trial became a media sensation. The wealthy uncle who'd slowly poisoned his nephew for corporate control, foiled by an undocumented housekeeper with an abandoned chemistry degree. Prosecutors found 4 months of evidence: specialized botanical suppliers, encrypted messages, a separate apartment where he'd been cultivating monkshood plants and extracting aconitine using equipment stolen from Park Industries' own labs. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. But the real story, the one that captivated the world, was what happened to Zara Mitchell. Jinwoo didn't just offer her a scholarship, he built her an entirely new life. full academic sponsorship to Seoul National University, legal work visa through Park Industries, a position in their pharmaceutical research division that paid enough to live on while she studied, and a promise. When she finished her chemistry degree, he'd fund medical school. All of it. "I don't want charity," she'd told him firmly. "It's not charity. It's an investment. You saved my life with knowledge you accumulated years ago. Imagine what you could do with a complete education." So Zara went back to school. At 29 years old, she sat in undergraduate chemistry courses alongside students 10 years younger, and she dominated. Professors who'd been teaching for decades said they'd never seen anyone with such an intuitive understanding of molecular structures, such a natural instinct for how compounds interacted. She finished her bachelor's in 2 years, top of her class. Every major pharmaceutical company in Korea offered her research positions. She turned them all down and went to medical school instead. Jinwoo was there at her undergraduate graduation, cheering louder than anyone. He'd made a full recovery. The aconitine had been cleared from his system, and intensive physical therapy had restored what the poison had destroyed. "What's next, Dr. Mitchell?" he asked at her graduation dinner. He'd started calling her doctor years before she'd earned it. "Medical school. 4 years. Then residency in toxicology. Then change the world?" She laughed. "Something like that." He looked at her across the table, and something in his expression made her heart stutter. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I'm in love with you." The restaurant noise faded. Zara stared at him. "What?" "I'm in love with you." "I've been in love with you since the moment you knelt beside me on that bathroom floor and decided I was worth saving. Since you risked everything to expose my uncle. Since you explained organic chemistry reactions like they were the most beautiful poetry ever written." He took a breath. "I'm in love with you, Zara. And I need you to know that before you disappear into medical school for the next decade." Zara's mind raced. This man who'd given her back her dreams, who'd become her closest friend, who looked at her not like a charity case or a medical miracle, but like an equal, like someone extraordinary. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Of what? Of losing this, of ruining our friendship, of the power imbalance, of," she paused, "of being happy, of letting myself want something this much." Jinwoo reached across the table, taking her hand. "Then be terrified with me. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm asking for a chance to see if what we have, this connection, this partnership, could be something more." Zara thought about the girl who'd been invisible 3 years ago, the woman she'd become, the future she'd thought was impossible. "One condition," she said. "Always." He smiled. "Name it. We go slow. Really slow. I want to finish medical school, build my career, become someone on my own terms before I become someone's partner. I need to know I'm with you because I want to be, not because I owe you. Deal. And if it doesn't work, we stay friends. No matter what. Promise me." "I promise." She squeezed his hand. "Then let's try." They took it slow. Dinner dates between her clinical rotations, long phone calls when she was on overnight shifts, quiet evenings in his study where she'd study pharmacology while he worked on business strategies, both of them just content to exist in the same space. Their first kiss happened 6 months later, in the hospital library at 2 a.m., surrounded by toxicology textbooks. He'd brought her coffee. She'd been crying over a patient she couldn't save. He'd held her. And somehow, holding became kissing, and kissing became everything. They dated for 4 years. Through her medical school graduation, through her residency in toxicology, through his expansion of Park Industries into international markets, through her mother's birthday, which she still marked with tears, through his board meetings where he revolutionized pharmaceutical research protocols. He proposed in the same laboratory where she'd first tested the poisoned tea. He'd recreated her entire analysis, equipment in the same positions, the same reagents, even the same type of tea samples. "This is where you saved my life," he said, kneeling among the beakers and burners. "This is where I first understood that you see the world differently than anyone else. That your mind works in ways that change everything." He opened a ring box. "Marry me, Dr. Zara Mitchell. Be my partner, my equal, my love. Save my life every single day for the rest of our lives." She said yes. 5 years after that, Dr. Zara Mitchell Park stood in her state-of-the-art toxicology research lab at Seoul National University Hospital, the Park Toxicology Center, named in honor of the case that had made her famous. She was training the next generation of doctors, teaching them to look beyond the obvious. 27 doctors missed the diagnosis that almost killed my husband, she told her students on the first day of class. Not because they were incompetent, but because they were looking in the wrong direction. They saw a collection of symptoms and tried to fit them into known diseases. They never asked the question that would have saved months of suffering. What if this isn't a disease at all? A student raised her hand. "Dr. Park, how did you know to look for plant-based toxins?" Zara smiled, twisting her wedding ring. "Because I learned something important when I was barely surviving in a rooftop apartment, cleaning houses to pay rent. The most dangerous things are often the most beautiful and hidden in plain sight. And the people everyone underestimates, the cleaning ladies, the students who dropped out, the ones working night shifts while everyone sleeps, those people see everything. Because when you're invisible, the world forgets to hide its secrets from you." After class, Jinwoo appeared at her office door with coffee, a ritual they'd maintained for 7 years. "How were the new students?" he asked. "Brilliant. Terrifying. Just like us at that age." He laughed, then his expression turned serious. "Do you ever regret it? The path we took? The public's attention? We could have kept quiet about everything." Zara considered it. "If we'd stayed quiet, your uncle would have gotten away with it. Other people would have died the same way. And I'd still be cleaning houses, invisible and forgotten." She took his hand. "Do you regret almost dying?" "That's dark. But it's true. If your uncle hadn't poisoned you, we never would have met." Jinwoo pulled her close. "Then I'm grateful for every terrible decision he made. Because it brought me to you." They stood in her office surrounded by the tools of modern medicine, the fruit of years of hard work and second chances. "We saved each other," Zara said softly. "We did." And in that moment, Dr. Zara Mitchell Park, former invisible cleaning lady, abandoned pre-med student, accidental medical detective, understood that the most important discoveries don't happen in laboratories or hospitals. They happen when someone decides to see what everyone else has overlooked, when someone refuses to accept the impossible, when someone chooses to notice the invisible and give them a voice. She'd been invisible once. Now she taught others to see what the world tried to hide. And that, she thought, was the most powerful chemistry of all. Here's the final truth. Never underestimate the person everyone ignores. They might be the only ones paying attention. They might be the one who saves everything. They might be extraordinary, just waiting for someone to finally see them. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to remember that being overlooked doesn't mean being worthless. It might just mean you're seeing what everyone else is missing.